Gold prices are soaring. Store shelves are looking thinner by the day. And yet, most people have no idea what's coming. All across the country, the very groceries we count on are starting to vanish. Quietly, without warning. It's not some distant threat anymore. It's already happening. And by the time the headlines catch up, it could be far too late. These aren't fancy snacks or once-a-year items. No, this is about the foods your family eats every single week. The staples, the basics. And as we approach May 31st, at least 10 of them are becoming dangerously scarce. If you're trying to budget smart, prep for the unknown, or simply make sure your next grocery trip isn't a nightmare, you need to know what's slipping away before it disappears entirely. Because once the rush begins, you'll wish you had acted sooner. So stay with me and pay close attention. These next few minutes might save you from regret down the line. We're counting down the 10 must-have foods that are vanishing faster than anyone expected. And trust me, waiting until it's obvious will be waiting too long. Let's start with number 10, butter. If you cook, bake, or prep for emergencies, you already know butter isn't just another grocery item. It's a kitchen essential. And while it's still sitting on store shelves for now, its disappearance is already in motion. Come May 31st, you may be staring at empty spaces where butter used to be. Why is this happening? The recent dip in butter prices is misleading. It's not because we're producing more. It's because exports have slowed. But butter production is deeply tied to nature. It depends on milk fat, and that milk fat comes from cows producing more milk in spring. This year, a colder than usual March threw off the cycle, lowering milk fat content. And here's the kicker. It takes 21 pounds of milk to make just 1 pound of butter. So when fat levels fall, so does production. That's not all. Making butter is energy heavy, especially in rural Midwest areas, where production depends on propane. Rising fuel costs, there could spike prices even more. And if you're thinking of grabbing a few extra sticks, storing it right is key. Salted butter lasts up to 2 years if vacuum sealed and frozen at 10 degrees Fahrenheit. You can also turn it into clarified butter, or ghee, a shelf-stable, long-lasting option perfect for when cooking oils run short. But even packaging is becoming a problem. Aluminum foil, commonly used to wrap butter, is in short supply. Some brands are switching to parchment paper, which doesn't preserve it as well in the freezer and lets odors in. Major retailers like Costco have already started limiting butter sales to just 2 multi-packs per customer. That kind of rationing is a red flag. So if you're thinking, maybe I should wait a bit longer, don't. By the time people notice, it may be too late to grab what you need. A silent rush is already underway. Bakeries, anticipating a turbulent fall, are locking in massive butter orders months in advance. By Memorial Day, demand will explode, thanks to holiday baking, cookouts, and seasonal favorites like corn on the cob. That's when shelves start to empty, prices shoot up, and families scramble to find what's already gone. If you wait until then, it may be too late. The smartest move right now? Stock up early, split a bulk pack with friends, freeze what you need, or turn it into shelf-stable ghee. But whatever you do, don't ignore the warning signs. Now, let's move to number 9, and this one hits even harder. Fresh chicken breasts are disappearing. Yes, the very food millions rely on for healthy, affordable meals could be vanishing right before grilling season hits. Chicken has always been a kitchen hero, lean, quick to cook, and budget-friendly. But lately, it's becoming harder to find. Behind the scenes, the poultry industry is under massive stress. It only takes 47 days to raise a chicken from hatch to market. That means every disruption is felt almost immediately, and there have been plenty. In March, a fire at a Tyson hatchery destroyed an entire week's worth of chicks, creating a ripple effect down the supply chain. And in the Midwest, spring floods have driven up corn prices by 12%. Since corn is nearly 70% of a chicken's diet, that spike is squeezing farmers hard. Many are downsizing flocks or rushing them to market sooner, shrinking overall supply. It's already showing at the register. Wholesale chicken prices are the highest they've been since the 2022 bird flu crisis. Retailers are adapting by shifting away from chicken breasts and toward cheaper cuts like wings and thighs. Even packaging materials are becoming scarce, leading to more bulk bags and fewer easy-to-store trays. And don't count on those famous Costco rotisserie chickens to stay cheap forever. If the shortage deepens, they may vanish or double in price. So what can you do? Act now. Buy extra chicken breasts, divide them into meal-ready portions, and freeze them right. Properly sealed, they'll last up to a year. You can also cook and shred the meat ahead of time for canning or stash the bones for homemade broth. Small efforts today could save your dinners tomorrow. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. Oatmeal is disappearing, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. At first glance, oatmeal doesn't seem like the kind of thing to panic over, but that's exactly why it's slipping under the radar. Shoppers in the know are already clearing shelves, grabbing this affordable, shelf-stable, nutrient-packed powerhouse before it's gone. And the reason? The data doesn't lie. Canada, the top supplier of oats to the U.S., has been slammed by back-to-back droughts for the past 2 years, slashing oat harvests dramatically. At home, domestic oat reserves are sitting at a 10-year low, and the exploding popularity of oat milk has only made things worse, draining supply even faster. And it doesn't stop there. The oatmeal crisis is quietly deepening, and the biggest reason? Beverage companies. They're snapping up raw oats to fuel the booming oat milk industry, leaving food producers scrambling to catch up. What does that mean for you? Less oatmeal on shelves, more competition, higher prices. But here's the thing. Oats aren't just another breakfast food. They're fast, filling, and loaded with heart-healthy fiber. Rolled oats cook in under 5 minutes, making them a go-to during power outages or chaotic mornings. Sure, steel-cut oats are nutritious too, but they take longer. And those instant packets? Convenient, yes, but more expensive and packed with sugar. If you're trying to stretch your grocery dollar, go with plain rolled oats and flavor them yourself. It's healthier, cheaper, and far more flexible. But don't just throw that bag in the pantry and forget it. Proper storage is critical. Those thin cardboard containers attract bugs and absorb moisture. Instead, use Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, or vacuum seal your oats in glass jars. Stored right, oats can last more than 10 years. Yes, a whole decade. And here's something most people miss. Oats are wildly versatile. Grind them into flour for gluten-free baking. Mix them with peanut butter and honey for no-bake energy snacks. Use them to stretch ground meat in burgers or meatloaf. You can even sprout oats into microgreens for fresh greens in a crisis. And don't forget your mix-ins: cinnamon, raisins, brown sugar, because those could disappear too. The oat supply chain is fragile. Droughts, broken equipment, floods, or trade tensions, any of these could stop production overnight. That's why oatmeal isn't just underrated, it's essential. Get it now while you still can. Now, on to number 7, and this one's a quiet giant in any long-term food plan: dried beans. They might not be flashy, they're not trending on TikTok, but beans are quietly flying off the shelves, and the reason is simple. They're one of the smartest survival foods out there. Dried beans are packed with protein, fiber, and nutrients. They're shelf-stable for decades if stored right. And they're insanely cheap. A single pound can give you 6 cups of hearty filling food. Pair that with rice, and you've got a complete protein for just a couple of bucks. But here's the problem. They're disappearing fast. Droughts across the US and Mexico are hitting producers hard, especially for black beans, which have seen export levels drop by 14%. Meanwhile, farmers are planting fewer beans and chasing more profitable crops like almonds and fruit. Pinto beans, one of the most popular varieties, are vanishing faster than toilet paper during a panic buy. On top of that, government contracts for navy beans are tightening supply even further. Add in rising freight costs, and it's a perfect storm. If beans are part of your emergency plan, now's the time to act. But don't make the rookie mistake of leaving them in their store-bought bags. For long-term storage, transfer them to food-grade buckets lined with mylar and oxygen absorbers. Done right, they'll last up to 30 years. For smaller households, vacuum sealing beans in glass jars makes them easier to handle. And here's a smart prepper tip. Freeze them for 72 hours before storage. That kills off any hidden pests before they become a problem. The bottom line? Beans are gold for your pantry, but only if you grab them before they're gone. And here's a shocking little secret most people forget. Weevils love beans. That's right. If you've ever opened an old bag and found tiny larvae inside, you already know how quickly dried goods can go bad without proper storage. But don't let that scare you off. Beans are more than just soup ingredients. Puree white beans into rich, creamy sauces, mash them into protein-packed dips, or even use the leftover cooking water as natural fertilizer for your garden. But time is running out. Shelves are thinning faster than anyone expected. Stock up while you still can. Store them right, and you're locking in one of the most versatile, dependable foods for your pantry. One that could carry you through months of uncertainty. Now, let's talk about something small, but powerful. Number 6, baking yeast. And yes, it's disappearing again. Remember what happened in 2020? One of the first things to vanish was yeast. Not toilet paper, not milk. Yeast. And history is starting to repeat itself. If you love baking fresh bread, pizza, or even simple muffins, this is your wake-up call. Yeast shortages are coming, and fast. Why? Because yeast isn't made like canned beans or pasta. It's alive. Grown in delicate, sterile environments, yeast takes time, precision, and perfect conditions to produce. One little hiccup, like a shutdown for cleaning, or a broken part in the machinery, and entire batches are lost. And that delay? It can lead to weeks, even months of empty shelves. And it gets worse. Yeast doesn't handle heat or air exposure well. A ripped packet, a humid shelf, or even just old stock, and it's useless. Your dough won't rise, and your plans will fall flat. So here's what you do. Freeze vacuum-sealed yeast. In the freezer, it can last up to 5 years or more. If you've bought a big pack, divide it into smaller airtight jars with oxygen absorbers to keep it fresh. Just be careful. Instant yeast works faster than active dry, but it's also more sensitive to poor storage. Store it wrong, and it'll let you down. And here's something most people miss. Yeast needs sugar to activate. But with sugar prices climbing, your stash might be less effective if you run low. That's why smart preppers are also stocking up on sugar and flour, because yeast without sugar is like a car without gas. Thinking of sourdough as your backup plan? Be warned, it's not a quick fix. Sourdough requires daily care and practice. Sure, you can dehydrate sourdough starter into flakes for storage, but unless you've worked with it before, it won't save you in an emergency. Meanwhile, big bakeries and breweries are already snapping up yeast for summer events, festivals, and weddings. That means less for home bakers. So if you see yeast on the shelf, grab it. And before you toss that old packet in your pantry, test it. Mix it with warm water and sugar and see if it bubbles. In an emergency, when store-bought bread is gone, yeast is the difference between being prepared and panicking. Don't wait for a shortage to teach you a lesson. Stock up now. And now, we move to a pantry classic that's disappearing even faster than you think. Number 5. Eggs. When a strike hits the food industry, it's not just a headline, it's an earthquake. And with eggs, the tremors are being felt already. Every time a major player like McDonald's ramps up their breakfast menu, it sends a massive shockwave through the egg supply chain, draining thousands of eggs from local store shelves almost overnight. And it's not just fast food chains to blame. New animal welfare laws in California are forcing older barns to shut down instead of upgrading, slicing egg production capacity dramatically. Even though the panic headlines have quieted, egg prices still sit nearly 3 times higher than the long-term average. And the first to disappear? The so-called specialty eggs, like cage-free, organic, or vitamin-enriched. They're gone before most shoppers even notice. Transport isn't helping either. Eggs are fragile, temperature-sensitive, and when refrigeration fails during shipping, entire truckloads can spoil instantly. In rural areas, where delivery schedules are already stretched thin, missing just one shipment can mean empty shelves for days. But here's the silver lining. You can outsmart the shortage. Coating your eggs in mineral oil can keep them fresh on the counter for 2 extra weeks. You can also freeze dry scrambled eggs or invest in powdered eggs, which, if sealed properly, last up to 5 years. And don't forget alternatives. Duck eggs, often found at Asian markets, are richer and work beautifully in baking. Still, the window to act is shrinking. Grocery chains have already started quietly rationing supplies, and with Memorial Day approaching, picnic favorites like deviled eggs are about to drive demand through the roof. One thing's for sure, your current dozen might be the cheapest you'll see for months. Stock up while you still can. Store smart. Don't wait until there's nothing left but rising prices and empty cartons. Now, let's move on to a comfort food classic that's suddenly under threat. Number 4. Cheddar cheese. If cheddar's a staple in your fridge, you might want to listen closely, because cheddar cheese isn't just getting expensive, it's vanishing. Prices are already climbing fast. But this isn't just about inflation. Cheddar has its own storm brewing. It takes nearly 9 pounds of milk to make just 1 pound of cheddar. So when feed costs skyrocket due to droughts and grain shortages,